Levack and Goss here with you on 104.5 The Team, and joining us now, he is from Our Land Scouting Services, LLC, the senior NFL draft analyst. David Syversten joins us. And Dave, let's get into the Giants and Jets NFL draft, and we'll start with Big Blue. The number 2 overall pick, Saquon Barkley, a good player at Penn State, but did the Giants make a mistake not drafting a quarterback with the 2nd overall selection?
Well, I think it's important the Giants did not want to force the pick. I think there's this unproven theory at the top of the draft that you have to take a quarterback when you're in a situation where a quarterback is needed this year or even next year. I think that the process of scouting players and grading players, it's so extensive. If you're going to throw the grades out simply because you think there's a theory that the quarterback needs to be taken at the top of the draft, you're doing your scouting service a disservice. Saquon Barkley, I don't think there's anyone that would argue against him being the top player in this draft, both on tape, in workouts, and in interviews. And this is a team that, they've committed to Eli Manning for at least another year, probably 2. And the thing that he's been having to deal with over the past couple of years is he's had very little help around him, both at the skill positions and with the offensive line. So if you're going to commit to a quarterback like that for 2 years, part of that commitment needs to be putting more talent around him.
And one of the things was they did address that offensive line issue. They drafted some offensive linemen, but the player that took headlines besides Saquon Barkley is another quarterback, Kyle Lauletta from Richmond. Are we going to see in this upcoming training camp the battle for the backup quarterback spot between him and incumbent Davis Webb?
I do think that's going to be one of the more interesting things to watch. Lauletta versus Davis Webb, 2 different kind of quarterbacks, but at the end of the day, they're both guys that both know the game very well. They study the game inside and out, and they're the kind of guys that you want backing up Eli Manning. Lauletta has a little bit more accuracy, a little bit more feistiness to him, a little bit more mobility in the pocket. And if you listen to Pat Sherman and what he wants out of a quarterback to develop, Lauletta has more of a skill set that is acclimated to that, where Davis Webb, he was not drafted by this regime. So I do think Lauletta's going to have an inside track at getting that backup job. Maybe not right away, but in time, I think that's going to be his gig.
The New York Giants had been rumored about signing Dez Bryant, the wide receiver formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, but Dez Bryant's not on the roster. Did the Giants, do you believe, adjust their draft strategy at all to decide whether or not they take a wide receiver or hold out and hope that Dez Bryant would sign with them?
I'm not sure Dez Bryant really factored into the plans for the Giants, because if there's one thing Dave Gettleman has proven to do, both in Carolina and early on here in New York, is he wants to change the culture. And Dez Bryant kind of has shown in Dallas over his career there, even though it was a pretty successful career, proved that, putting too big of a personality into this locker room might not be exactly what they wanted. I think the Giants are actually happy with what they have, because let's not forget Evan Engram. He's not exactly a strict tight end. I think that he plays more wide receiver role than tight end. I think Odell Beckham's going to be here for the long-term future. You have Sterling Shepard manning the slot. Corey Latimer, I think, is an overlooked signing from Denver. A lot of people had a first-rank grade on him when he was drafted. I don't think Dez Bryant really factored into the equation at all.
Dave Syversten from Our Land Scouting Services, LLC, their senior NFL draft analyst, joins us over the phone lines here on Levack and Goss on 104.5 The Team. Let's shift over to the New York Jets, and your home for Jet football this fall is right here on The Team. 3rd overall pick, they take USC quarterback Sam Darnold. Should Jets fans be absolutely thrilled that they got this Trojan quarterback for their future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a relationship that came full circle. At this point last year, everyone thought the Jets would win 1 or 2 games. They'd be at the top of the draft. At this point last year, everyone assumed that Darnold would be the top pick in the draft. It's funny how this happened, though. The Jets played a little bit better than people thought. Darnold played a little bit worse than they thought, so they kind of were able to meet at 3 via a trade up. The Jets did give up some capital here. They gave up 3 second-round picks to move up for a quarterback that they did not know was there. But the Browns' late, infatuation with Baker Mayfield, Darnold falls right to their lap and gives them, their next potential franchise quarterback. And this is a team that, outside of that position, really is not that bad. They've played. They're pretty competitive on the defensive side of the ball. They have a defensive coach. There's some young talent to be excited about. You put the quarterback in, and that really connects a lot of dots. So Jets fans should be very excited about the near-term future.
Yeah, the toughest part about now Sam Darnold's future is that it's going to be such a crowded quarterback room, and just to get reps on the practice field, they're going to go into camp with Teddy Bridgewater, Christian Hackenberg, Bryce Petty, and Josh McCown. Is there any time frame, maybe not even 2018, when we actually see Sam Darnold on the field as the quarterback for the New York Jets?
Well, I think that's best case scenario for Darnold, because let's not forget this. He turned the ball over 37 times in 26 games. Like, that's a tough number to shake. And if you look at NFL draft history and how quarterbacks translate from college to the NFL, guys with those kind of turnover numbers, they do the same thing in the NFL. So I think there's going to be a lot of time needed for Darnold to really clean up his mechanics, clean up his techniques, and really learn how to mentally process a defense, because you could tell the NCAA defenses ate him up in 2018. And the NFL defenses, after studying that kind of tape, they'll be able to do the same exact thing with the complexity of NFL defenses.
Was there any other New York Jet pick that really stood out to you that you were really impressed that they were adding this guy to their roster?
Well, Chris Herndon, the tight end from Miami. I remember last year at this, I was scouting David Njoku, who was going to ended up being a first-round pick of the Browns. You know, these two guys played on the field at the same time pretty often, and at times you couldn't really tell the difference who was who until you saw the jersey number. And that's a compliment to Herndon, because Njoku ended up being one of the biggest physical freaks in last year's class, a first-round pick of the Browns, had a pretty good rookie year. Herndon, I think, has very similar talent level here. He's a blocker, he's a receiver, he can run in space. There was a 51-yard touchdown he had against UNC last year where he extended his body over the middle in traffic, and then he outran the entire UNC defensive backfield. You know, this is a guy that's not going to run a 4.4, but once he gets going in space, he's got that kind of long stride speed that doesn't necessarily always show up in a 40 time. Look at this Jets tight end group right now. I think he might have the inside track at the starting job, I would say, before halfway through the season.
Jets fans, there's something to be excited about for sure. He's the senior NFL draft analyst. You can check out his work for Our Land Scouting Services, LLC. Dave Syversten. Dave, we appreciate the time, man. We'll be talking again soon in the near future.
Thank you.